Yeah, and the Oklahoma Sooners now have just a few top targets that they're looking at. We're going to discuss that
Yeah.
quickly after the break. We'll also get into a little bit of what Colin Cowherd has done to unite all of the content creators, much like Captain America called out the Avengers. We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
College football is back, and it's not too late to catch up before the season kicks off. SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12. You can get it all from Locked On's stable of college experts by subscribing to the Locked On College Football Podcast. Who has a chance to make the playoff? What teams will cause chaos in their new conferences? Everything you need to know all in one place. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Locked On College Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Jay, before we get into Colin Cowherd uniting all content creators of Oklahoma fandom, let's discuss where Oklahoma's at on the recruiting trail now. They've got 23 commitments in the cycle. You talked about Sean Hutton, the preferred walk-on that they've added as well. Where do they go from here?
So on the list right now, you still got Christian Jones, the linebacker out of Nebraska. He had mentioned in a interview I saw not too long ago that he's looking to make his decision around the second or third game of the season. He's not in a big rush, but it feels like he's really trying to evaluate if Nebraska's going to actually be any good. Everybody has a heavy lean towards Oklahoma today, but if Nebraska starts off pretty strong, I think they may have a chance to actually push for him, right? And to me, that means that Oklahoma's going to turn their attention to a few other players, right? I know that we have a few others that we're really, keyed in on. You still got Andrew Babalola, who has not made a decision yet. He was actually supposed to make a decision at the beginning of the month, and it seems like the Fasusi date kind of made him push it back. And so now Babalola is just in limbo. Supposed to happen before his season starts, but nobody knows when that's actually going to be, right? He hasn't given anything official, but I know Oklahoma's still in the mix, battling with like Michigan as well as Stanford on who's going to get a service. I heard that Auburn, I think Steve Wiltfong over at On 3 mentioned that Auburn is starting to kind of, tap in there and ask some questions and see if it can get his attention, but he's probably going to end up one of the northern plays. He's going to either end up in Michigan or probably Stanford, but I think Oklahoma still has a puncher's chance to go after him. Besides that, you got Jonah Williams, the safety that we were coveting at the beginning of the year. Seemed like we were like the favorite for it for a while, and I guess the crystal balls may have scared him away. When he dropped his top 5, we weren't in that one, but rumor has it we're still in conversation with him or whatnot. I think he ends up playing baseball, though. Like the word around the streets is he's really good at baseball, but he doesn't supposedly take baseball super seriously. I don't know which one it is. He's just probably just an amazing athlete and just does it because it's fun. Yeah. He may want to just do football, but his recruitment's up in the air. I'm sensing that he's going to play 2 sports. I wonder if Skip can get in there and, give him a call again about 2-sport U and say, hey, you want to come here. So that's really the bigger ones that Oklahoma has left. We're probably going to put a bow on this 25 class very soon. Now, do not be surprised if Oklahoma tries to flip 1 or 2 people. I think there are some targets out there. I'm just waiting to see who those are and what we actually are looking for. But right now, this class is probably done.
Is there a position that you look at and you're like, I think Oklahoma would be wise to try and add more of this?
I'd say offensive line still. I think we probably could use an additional 1 or 2 just to make sure that we have that competitive depth in order to, go through it and deal with the SEC, right? We bring in a Branson Hickman that helped with that depth at the center position, and now everybody's all banged up. Now, granted, BV said that he doesn't expect anybody to miss time as far as football time, as far as game time, but practice-wise, they're not able to practice as much. They're, nicked up and bruised. So, yeah, it's good to have those additional bodies, especially at the offensive line. I think offensive line is probably the one. I think we're fine at linebacker, to be absolutely honest. I think we've got if anything, 26. We have to go very heavy on linebackers because at that point you should see at least 3 people start to fall off, going pro and all of that because we'll start to age out then. So to me, offensive line, I'd like to get some more players there just to make sure that we have a good stable.
Yeah, you can never have enough offensive line depth as we're seeing this fall camp, and as we're seeing with the turnover of the offensive line altogether. Having those depth pieces matters. Now let's talk Colin Cowherd. We talked a little bit about it on our show yesterday, but it seems like everybody's coming to Oklahoma's defense a little bit, which seems a little bit odd there, Jay. I gotta admit, it's not often that you see guys like Joel Klatt and J.D. Pickell, and obviously Teddy and Gabe from the Oklahoma Breakdown are going to have Oklahoma's back on all things. But yeah, the national analysts are coming together to kind of put Colin Cowherd in his place a bit.
Yeah, and I in a way feel bad for Colin because this was a very old take, and he did correct himself like as soon as the season went down and he saw what we did to Texas. He was kind of just like, all right, I may have misspoke on some of this stuff, but everybody's rehashing it. The Texas fans feel the need to say, you guys are going to be the next Nebraska, even though statistically they were the closest thing to Nebraska at the time. They were it. They just have spurts of being really good. I mean, it's no shade to them. I'm just speaking facts here, right? But it was funny seeing J.D. Pickell go in because, Pickell gave us a 6-6 record. He feels like year one's not going to be very fruitful, but he does feel like year 2 and 3 and long term, Oklahoma's in a good spot. He changed his tune a little bit there. Then, of course, Josh Pate felt like he needed to put everybody in place and explained immediately, like we talked about yesterday, about, no, Oklahoma's been recruiting at a very high level, and it feels like those that don't pay attention what's actually going on, like in the recruiting world as well as in the game world, they're missing on what actually is happening. And then Joel Klatt, which I love Klatt because he always goes on Cowherd, on the herd, and he corrects Colin like right there in real time. So he's our best fact checker. His endorsements have gotten more and more. He really is feeling what Oklahoma and what Brent Venables is building here in Norman.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, he just says Oklahoma is Oklahoma. The expectations are high at Oklahoma. You don't win 50 conference championships, 7 national championships, 14 conference championships since the year 2000 without having high expectations and a lot of pride. And that's Oklahoma. Josh Pate mentioned the stability that they have in the administration and the vision that they have in the administration to be able to effectively contend and compete on a year in, year out basis. Joe Klatt even talked about Jackson Arnold and what they have at wide receiver. A lot of people want to try to assume Jackson Arnold is exactly who he was in the Alamo Bowl. Now, is he going to throw for 350 passing yards every game? Probably not. But he's not going to be throwing 3 interceptions every game and turning the ball over 4 times. That's not going to happen.
Unless you're on college football 25.
Unless you're John playing college football 25. It's hard. It's really hard to complete a pass in that game. And so it's funny to see, Joel Klatt come into Oklahoma's aid. Now, I will say he was also sitting there trying to say, let's not lower expectations for Oklahoma either.
No.
Whether it's the schedule or the conference, whatever it is, the expectations at Oklahoma are high, and the expectation is to contend for championships. And I totally agree with him on that. I feel like I've heard Gabe say the same thing on different national platforms where they asked what the expectations are for Oklahoma going into the SEC. And he said, contend for the conference title and contend for a national title. The expectations don't change. Whether your schedule's easy or tough, Oklahoma's got one thing on its mind. And Klatt also said the thing that I said on our show yesterday. If Oklahoma can go 3-3 against Tennessee, Ole Miss, Texas, Missouri, Alabama, and LSU, you split those 3 games, and there's a really good chance that you can still make the playoff as a 9-3 team. Now, 9 wins, that's not Oklahoma's standard. Oklahoma's standard is double-digit wins and being in contention for a college football playoff spot, a conference title game spot. But if you get to that threshold, you'll have a really, really strong case as maybe the only 9-win team to actually get in. But Oklahoma could be in for a whole lot more this year.
Yeah, we can contend, especially if we're riding heavily on the defense, right? You've heard me say this numerous times, and that's the thing that I lean heavy on is my expectation is Oklahoma's going to have the defense basically carry this team, right? And as you talked about before with Jackson Arnold and the way that he played against Arizona, I mean, he did well enough. He made the young players some mistakes, but he also did, some really good things. But this offense is probably going to fit him a lot better, especially because Klatt, like I said, Klatt mentioned this in his video that his skill set is built perfectly for the skills guys we have, And the good thing is we got veteran skills guys who's been there with him for at least a year that he's been able to work with, right? Besides Deion Burks, everybody else been around. And so far, it looks like him and Deion Burks has become a great connection, adding him with J.J. Hester, along with, of course, Nick and everything else. It appears that we have all the pieces around him to make him successful. He's just going to have to make sure that he takes his time and does it. So, to me, just as Clad said, conference championship, playoff is the expectation. That's the standard. Our goal is to win a bunch of games in this conference and prove everybody wrong.
Yeah, our guy Damian Parson over at Locked On NFL Draft was highlighting Nick Anderson and his ability to win deep with the size that he's got at 6'4", 215, and posted a video of Nick Anderson winning deep and then having to come back for the football because Dylan Gabriel underthrew him again. And it just made me so much more excited for what Jackson Arnold brings to the table, because all those underthrows that we saw under Dylan Gabriel, as great as he was, Dylan Gabriel was fantastic. He did a great job for Oklahoma. He could not throw the deep ball. Well, you got a lot of dudes that can run the deep routes and win deep. Nick Anderson, Angelo Anthony, Deion Burks, and that's going to unlock a whole different element of this offense that Jackson Arnold is going to thrive in. Sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the poolside, snacks for the kids. What do these have in common? You're probably buying a ton this summer, this fall, but don't stress about the cost. Use Ibotta and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on all of your summer essentials. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop, earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, the flight you've been eyeing, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. You can save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. It's time you joined the over 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 for just trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONCollege for Ibotta.